tuition fees?
Yes, so there's been a lot of talk about tuition fees, again, in the last few weeks since the election. So it was a very high-profile plank of Jeremy Corbyn's platform that he's going to scrap tuition fees altogether. We had some new research in the Institute for Fiscal Studies out this week, which suggests that now graduates, 70% of graduates will never pay off all of their tuition fee debt. And so you're starting to hear some political noises from the Conservatives, actually, some of whom are quite nervous about students and their constituencies, for example, thinking perhaps that maybe they need to take a step back from this policy. I think the really important thing about £9,000 tuition fees, this new cap was introduced in 2012, it was basically a bit of a mistake by the government, because when the government introduced the £9,000 fee cap, they were on record as saying that they thought that tuition fees would be lower, that universities would compete on price.
It's never going to happen.
Obviously, that didn't happen. The average price jumped straight up to just under £9,000. So basically, what happened was that universities awarded themselves a massive 25% increase in per-student funding.
I think there's another angle to this. You know, everybody focuses very much on the young vote, you know, what students or people who are about to go to university will be thinking of this. But actually, from a Conservative point of view, I think Conservatives are also nervous about the parents, because often it's the parents who are bailing the kids out, and so it's therefore affecting the older vote as well.
We heard from Damien Green last week talking about the issue of tuition fees, saying there needs to be
a national debate.
You can imagine how sickening it would be if you're Nick Clegg, former leader of the Lib Dem party, and the Tories now abolish tuition fees, and you actually sacrificed your party for that policy. I think that would be pretty sticking in the throat.
There are massive questions to be asked there. You know, some of these fees costing almost £9,000 a year.
And what do you get
for it? Where does that money go? What are universities doing with that money if you're just having, you know, a few lectures a week and a couple of tutorials?
And, you know, you're saddled with debt and you're still got an uncertain future in terms of getting a gainful employment.
You know, in 10 years' time, they're going to be willing to get mortgages and they're paying an extra 9p on the pound and their income above 21 grand to pay back their loans.
OK, guys, let's talk about this story which is on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, saying patients can't get to see their GPs. Almost 1 million patients a week unable to get appointments.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by this, because usually you can get an appointment. It's a question of whether you're prepared to sit in the morning and just wait for your turn. And that obviously is very inconvenient for people, whether they've got young families or whether they've got a job to go to and can't afford to sit in the long queue and wait for potentially for hours. But it fits with a general theme about pressure on primary care. And, you know, a number of my friends are GPs and talk very compellingly about the pressure on them and how little time they have, what a production line it is. You know, you've got officially, I think it's 10 minutes to see a patient, but actually often it's crammed in, and then you'll get people who come with multiple problems and take up 20 minutes and everything gets pushed back.
It's saying that the number has risen by 56% in 5 years. That's a huge figure.
It's huge, and actually I think it reflects what's going on the ground. So the number of GPs has actually fallen in recent years, and that's very symbolic of broader staffing pressures in the NHS. So we haven't been training enough nurses, we haven't been training enough doctors, we've got retention issues because we've had this public sector pay cap in place now, you know, for a good sort of 6 or 7 years. And you're getting particularly low-paid staff leaving the NHS to go and work, you know, in supermarkets. It's more competitive.
Isabel, let's stay with health. I mean, this is a story which is in The Sun, fears of a PTSD spike.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting story. It's about possibility that a number of more children might be suffering from kind of post-traumatic stress as a result of the kind of seeing the media coverage of some of the really awful events that we've had. So the Grenfell Tower, the terror attacks, and I think it's a really difficult question for parents of younger children as to, you know, do you cotton wool your children so much that they're not aware of these events? If the television's on in the background, you quickly turn it off. You know, how do you handle explaining to them these terrible things that happened and hopefully the very small likelihood of it ever affecting them personally?
And we're in a world of 24-hour news as well, where coverage is accessible, whether it's on your mobile phone, whether it's using your tablet, or indeed watching on telly.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's very hard, as you say, Isabel, to sort of keep your kids protected from that. But there are ways, and I suppose, you know, the charities like the NSPCC have issued guidelines about how you should speak to your children when tragedy strikes.
Indeed, let's hope it is addressed sooner rather than later. Okay, finally, last but by no means least. Front page of The Sun, apparently we're due for a shortage of butter. That is shock horror, isn't it?
Well, it's not for you, because you've just admitted to us that you eat margarine or nothing at all. Sonia and I are both butter fans.
We are butter fans, and this is the worst butter shortage since World War II. So apparently a combination of the Great British Bake Off and a number of studies saying that actually maybe butter isn't that bad for your health after all, mean that there's been a spike in demand for butter. Prices have gone up by 88%, according to The Sun.
But isn't that part of the problem? I mean, one day we're being told that butter is bad for us, and then the next day we're being told that actually butter is actually okay for us.
Yeah, I think we've been told that butter is better than margarine for quite a while. You know, it's certainly to do with the type of fat it is, isn't it? And Sonia was saying if you just have a bit of thin butter, it's better.
Yeah, you spread your butter thinly.
Yeah, I think there's no point in having thin butter. It's a bit like having cake and not eating it.
So what would your advice be to our viewers who are concerned about...
Get out there and stockpile
yeah, stockpiling your freezer, definitely.
Okay, Sonia and Isabel, many thanks indeed. We'll see you in about half an hour or so. For now, let's have a look at what the weather's got in store for us.